Welcome to the 5th episode of the Force Geeks, a Star Wars podcast where X-Wing marks the spot, and brought to you by dailysuperhero.com, where you can find focused coverage on movies, TV content, and more for Marvel, DC, Star Wars, of course, Indiana Jones, and a Ghostbusters, because, hey, there's a new Ghostbusters movie coming out. We all want more of that. New episodes drop on Mondays, and we appreciate you trying out a new podcast with us. Please hit the subscribe option and help support us. Now, we have a special guest that will be joining us this week, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Right now, let me just introduce ourselves. I'm Nate Custer, and I'm joined by my longtime friend and fellow Force Geek, Jake Scott. Jake, how are you this week?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Let's start with what we have coming up. We'll review the latest Mandalorian episode, Chapter 6, The Prisoner, and a Secret Fourth Star Wars show set to begin production in 2020. We'll break it down for you about what the focus will be. Who's it going to be about? We're going to answer that question for you. Also, an update on Baby Yoda toys. It looks like we'll be getting some even sooner than we actually expected, and the production need, of course, ramping up because everybody loves Baby Yoda. We've talked about it multiple times already up to this point, and we're just days away from the end of the Skywalker saga. As The Rise of Skywalker hitting theaters later this week. I'm completely geeked for this, Jake. I know you are too. Yeah. And we have a lot to get to and a guest. Before we get to that, as far as all the content we're talking about, I want to give a quick shout out to a really great Facebook community that supports our Star Wars addiction. Check out the official Star Wars fan club group on Facebook. I'm a member. They've got a lot of great interactions, memes, fun. The discourse is awesome. And I tell you what, the memes are really, really out of sight, man. They're awesome. So now I'm going to get to this, introducing our very special guest this week. We're joined by dailysuperhero.com founder Daniel Wolf. Thank you so much for joining us, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. I'm just going to jump into this. I want to get everyone's thoughts on this latest episode of The Mandalorian. We're talking spoilers, so if you have not watched it yet, don't worry. We'll be here for you, but if you don't want to know the details, come back and listen after you've watched the show, because we're going to ruin it for you if you stay here. Now, we'll be here waiting for you at that point, so now I've warned you. Turn off the podcast. Come back to us later. Let's get into it. Mandalorian talk. Do we like Chapter 6? Jake, I'll start with you.
I was not as impressed with this one.
Really?
I mean, I did like it.
What's your beef?
Don't get me wrong. Honestly, the way that the female actress was playing the Twi'lek drove me crazy. I just, yeah, I see.
Daniel is shaking his head, a very emphatic yes. Daniel, what do you think?
Oh, it was such a turnoff, and it was campy to a fault.
Yeah, it felt like she was trying to channel Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad.
A little bit.
You know,
a little bit.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me for whatever reason. I don't know. It just didn't fit in with what I know of Twi'leks from canon and EU, what they've portrayed so far.
Let's get into that. As far as canon goes and what you know, and Jake, obviously a huge EU fan and read just about, you read almost every book there is from the EU, right?
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about what the Twi'leks or Twi'leks, tell us about those. Just in case you're a casual fan, the Twi'leks are the ones that have those big, tentacles off their heads. What do you call those?
Braintails, or Leku in their language.
Okay. What do you think a Twi'lek is supposed to be like?
Well, you know, so many of the portrayals that they show in the EU show them as being ruthless, crafty. You know, they're not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, there's variations just like there are in every other race, but, you know, they're not goofy to this extent that we saw in this episode. You know, they're more serious in a lot of ways, I guess. It just didn't fit with how I think of them from so many of the different portrayals that we've seen from Senator Orn Free Taa, from the movies and the books, Cham Syndulla, one of the guys that was running the Free Ryloth movement, and some of the more recent books. Just, you know, it just didn't work for me.
Well, I didn't feel like it was goofy, but I did feel like it was kind of strange. And to see the fangs going on, that was kind of unexpected for me, Daniel.
When she was hissing, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Stop hissing over and over again.
Yeah.
I have to think that some of that was part of giving the actress some leeway to play it how she wanted to. Do you guys recognize who that is?
No.
I saw the name, but I don't recognize her.
Okay, so let me share with you. You would recognize her from Game of Thrones, also Harry Potter. She was a wildling who was looking after Bran in Game of Thrones.
But she wasn't in Twilight because she kind of was playing it off as the vampire most of the time.
She was kind of playing kind of a vampire vibe. But yeah, so that's who she is. I'm trying to remember her name right now. She played the character Xian in this story, and she played by Natalia Tina. T-E-N-A. So you can find her on imdb.com, but she also was in Harry Potter as well, and she played Tonks is what she was in the Harry Potter movies.
Really?
I've only seen a few of them, yeah, so I don't know all of them, but I know that's where she's from.
Okay.
So. But that brings me to another point here. Okay, so we think the Twilight part kind of fell flat. I was okay with it. It just wasn't my favorite part. I felt like she was a little over the top with how she was trying to portray her character. But again, I have to point out, as I have in previous episodes of this show, that I feel like Star Wars is not necessarily for people our age. It's a nice revisit to our childhood, our youth, and some of Star Wars is kind of campy. And I think that she really took off on that aspect of things and made it over the top for me. Daniel?
I think that the director should have just, I don't know, interjected a little bit, saying to pull it back just a tiny bit. Like, I think if she didn't go so over the top and just pulled it back and maybe hissed once instead of like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we get the point. Like, you're kind of weird. You're out there.
Yeah.
She was cool when she was throwing the knives around, though. So I mean, I'll give her that.
I was totally good with that. It was great.
Yeah.
And by the way, the director on this one was Rick Famuyiwa, and he directed Chapter 2 of The Mandalorian. Also, he directed a really great movie called Dope, if you're not familiar with him already. So this is the second of the 2 chapters he directed for this first season of The Mandalorian. Also, we saw him in the show. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, X-Wing pilot.
Yep. There was 3 X-Wing pilots, Daniel. Did you see show producer and co-creator Dave Filoni?
Yes. Good for him.
There's Deborah Chow.
He deserved
Deborah
it.
Chow as well. His character, and I just love Dave's fascination with wolves. His character's name was Trapper Wolf.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm down with that.
Of course you are with the last name Wolf. You got to be good with that. Let's go and get into those cameos because it's kind of something I enjoyed. Comedian Bill Burr, who plays former Imperial sharpshooter Mayfeld, was his name. Now he's not even a Star Wars fan. Have you guys heard about this? He's not even a Star Wars fan.
I have heard that, yeah.
Yeah, totally is not down. Likes to make fun of people who are totally. He's the right age too to have been a super fan.
Yep.
But he was friends with Jon Favreau, and Favreau approached him, and he's like, you know, I don't even like the show. I'm not into the movies. That was never my thing. So apparently he had a lot of fun on the show, and he's kind of starting to get some of the Star Wars vibes. So that's cool, and I enjoyed his character actually. How
Another
about you guys?
convert.
I enjoyed his little weird, like, robotic backpack thing. Like, what's up with that? Is that like mind
Oh,
controlled, or what's the deal with that?
No idea how the thing works, but nice to have another hand to shoot, I guess, and that worked out pretty cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, this had cameos galore with this, and a lot of Easter eggs for a lot of Star Wars fans. But, I mean, you had 3 cameos from the directors who've been working on this show with Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa. And then also, if you look at Deborah Chow, and we've mentioned this before, she is the showrunner for the upcoming Kenobi series that I know that we're going to go into production early this next year, which is great. I'm super excited. Daniel's doing a happy dance right now.
Yeah,
We've
excited.
all wanted Kenobi.
Give me lightsabers.
Yes.
Exactly. Star Wars is lightsabers. Now, also, I don't know if you caught this, but Anakin is kind of in this too. And by Anakin, I say Clone Wars voice of Anakin Skywalker. Matt Lanter plays the egghead that they referenced, the New Republic soldier on the prisoner ship. It was kind of fun to see him in this.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
that's cool.
That's fun.
Yep, that was Matt Lanter. So very cool to see the voice of Anakin in this and get his actual real life cameo into the show as well. And then, did you catch the Davronian? And for you guys who aren't sure what the alien names are, that was the large kind of reddish orange skinned
The devil-looking
big
guy.
character with the horns.
Yes.
That's Davronian. Do you know who is playing that? His character's name was Berg. Crickets right now. Good, because I think you're going to love this. If you're familiar with Clancy Brown, he's been in some pretty huge projects. He was actually in one of my favorite campy movies, Starship Troopers, as the sergeant who trains them all at boot camp.
Oh, that's right.
Clancy Brown is the Davronian
that's right.
Berg. Yeah, he's also, by the way, no stranger.
He's like one of those weird, like, cameo cult actor type of things. Like,
He is!
shows
Yeah.
up and you're just like, oh, that guy.
Wasn't he in the original Highlander? Wasn't that him? I think he was. I could be wrong on this.
know.
I'll have to fact check myself later, and you're not going to hear if I'm right or wrong until next week, but I'm going to fact check it eventually. But he's also no stranger to Star Wars. He's actually been a voice actor for some of the Star Wars shows, like in Clone Wars. He played Savage Opress. So I don't know, Daniel, if you watch much of the Clone Wars, the animated shows, but he's
Love it.
the brother of Maul. Yes, me
Love
too.
it.
Yep.
Jake, I know you're a fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's Maul's brother. In surprise, if you didn't know Darth Maul survives and you didn't even see Han Solo, the Solo movie, yeah, Maul survived somehow and had crazy mechanical spider legs. So you got to get into the Clone Wars if you haven't already.
Well, apparently
but anyway, he
you
plays
can
the brother.
survive anything in the Star Wars universe.
Large Falls. I mean, Mace Windu's still alive as far as George Lucas and Samuel L. Jackson are concerned.
Yes, I'm still iffy about that, but
I love
I
it.
have to trust him. I'm not saying I wouldn't like to see him back. I just,
Give me some more
you know,
Sam.
I just don't
want
see
it.
how he could have survived that fall.
Just give me
after
a
being
give me a
zapped out of
Force
the window.
ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also talked about the Game of Thrones connection. Funny, though, because I mentioned we may not like her portrayal of the Twi'lek, but Natalia was in Game of Thrones, as was Pedro Pascal. So that's 2 Game of Thrones actors that are in this show, and that connection staying strong. Now, also, Droid Zero, played by a comedian actor, which I'm familiar with, but I don't think he's very much in the public lexicon in a huge way. Some people like him, really like him, but a lot of people are not as familiar. His name is Richard Ayoade, and he was in The Watch movie with, you know what? Not important. Look up The Watch. He was also in The IT Crowd, which was a show from Britain that came over as well. But Vince Vaughn was in the movie The Watch, as was Ben Stiller. So he was in that movie as well. Let's get back to the important parts here. As far as the plot goes, not your favorite one, Jake. I know that. Daniel, you're not huge on this. Was it just the Twi'lek, or are there other parts that didn't work for you?
Well, I mean, they went right to the let's team up and put a crew together trope. So, I mean, that's kind of played out. And it was kind of a generic just concept to use, but, you know, they needed it to work for this episode in particular. But honestly, just give me more Baby Yoda. That's all I care about.
Yeah. I thought we were going to get another Force interaction with him, too. I thought that was about to happen.
I definitely screamed like a little child when he hit the ground.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't hurt the child. Child is very important to all of our hearts. That's for sure.
And you know what? With all due respect to the Mandalorian, just let him use his Force powers. Come on.
No joke.
I know.
That's all he wants to do.
Yeah, at what point do they just unleash him? Let him at it. I mean, we've already seen that he could take on, you know, it wasn't a reek, but it was a mudhorn, I think is what it was called. Yeah, that was so cool. I want to see him do some more Force stuff.
It would have been cool if he just force blasted everybody into the walls of the ship when he fell onto the ground. Yeah. Just slammed everybody around.
Oh, totally.
And it's funny when you look at this because the Mando keeps getting double-crossed. Yep. Does he have any real friends at this point?
The child.
Yeah.
That's it.
What about Cara Dune?
Well, I do think we're going to see her again.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I think she's coming back. I hope she is. I really hope she is. Jake, as far as the rest of the show, what worked and what didn't for you?
I didn't have any other problems with it. I think it was really cool. It was nice to see the Mandalorian really get unleashed on all the droids and just really get in there hand to hand and, you know, not just show off his shooting skills, but his grappling ability in his Beskar and really just go to town, tearing everybody apart limb from limb. I was a little surprised at the end to see him, you know, show his soft side again and let everybody live. I don't know that I would have made the same call, but whatever.
There are kids watching. I'm going to say it again. There are kids watching. Star Wars is for kids. It's fun for us to revisit. Star Wars is for kids.
I know.
You don't see any blood. You don't see anyone actually get chopped in half, but we know what happened, especially in the original, the first chapter that came out. We saw that guy with the door closing in on him. We know that he got chopped in half, but we didn't actually see it. Star Wars is for kids.
And you thought he got chopped up, but he didn't in this one.
Sure.
Well, I thought it was actually a pretty decent episode. I wasn't crazy about the Twi'lek and how that was played out, but it didn't really ruin it for me. As a matter of fact, as far as the rest of the shows go, I actually like this one better than the last 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah?
So, for me, I thought this was actually a pretty good episode. I like that we're finally back in space. Star Wars is about space for me to some degree, so I wanted to be out in space. I'm a little worried about how much the double cross is going to play into the rest of the show, because I expect him to get some double cross here and there, but it's you know, a few in a row at this point. I want to see something else happen besides the double cross being the thing that he has to worry about the most, because I'm not getting that sense of urgency that he's on the run from things. With this episode, I know he's trying to earn some money, which is the reason why he goes this really kind of dirty kind of guy that he's not been friends with before, to get some money, to earn some money, to take care of things, because he is on the run. Yeah. That's the only aspect of the overarching storyline I picked up from this episode. But I actually enjoy the fact that he was able to make the double cross work. We saw him being a badass with the droids that were on the episode itself when they're battling, and you see him come up from behind them all and showing that his skills as a Mandalorian. Took a lot of heat from the rest of the crew about being a Mandalorian, which to me, if these guys have that kind of reputation, I understand everyone's like trying to prove who's the biggest in the room when it comes to strength and ability and all that. But I don't think if they've got that kind of reputation, I'd be shooting my mouth off quite like that. It was fun for me to see that they even threw in a Gungan reference. Poor old Jar Jar.
Just getting trashed in every turn.
Bill Burr speaking Gungan. That was pretty hilarious.
Misa, the butt of all jokes.
Nice.
So I thought it was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed this show a little bit more than the last couple ones. So I think hopefully if they can get rid of these tropes and start to do something a little more original. And I think Deborah Chow has another one that she's directing. So I'm looking forward to what she did, because her episode is actually one of my favorites that she's that's been done so far for this. I mean, we're 6 chapters in of 8. I believe we take a break this next week because obviously there's something bigger happening this week. Episode 9 opens up at theaters this week.
Well, they're doing it 2 days early. is what's happening.
That's what it is?
Yes, it's Wednesday the 17th instead of Friday.
There you go.
For
there
that reason alone. So,
well, thumbs up or thumbs down on this episode, guys?
Thumbs up. I'm waiting for him to do the Knight Rider in space. I mean, they did A-Team already. So, or Airwolf maybe. I don't know.
I'll give it a thumbs up, and I'd like to point out that when he was hunting down Bill Burr's character and showing up in the flashes closer and closer, that was one of the best parts of the entire episode, because it actually gave it like a horror feel almost.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Totally loved that part, and I thought that was a nice way to play out a little bit of the suspense of what is about to happen. Then when he wasn't there, you're like, oh, where'd he go? And then all of a sudden he's on the other side of it.
That was really well done.
The Mando is dangerous. You got to remember that. Okay, let's go and jump into another topic here right now. And secret... Oh, by the way, I'm giving a thumbs up, too. I think I made that pretty clear. I like this episode. There's a few things I didn't like, but otherwise, it's Star Wars. Give me more of it. I'm ready for it, and I like The Mandalorian. Secret Disney Plus Star Wars show coming in 2020. Guys, if there's one topic that you want them to explore with the Disney Plus series, what is it? I'll start with you, Daniel.
I just want more lightsabers. That's all I want. I can't get enough lightsabers. I'm happy that Obi-Wan's coming. Give me a Darth Revan. I mean, he's one of the most mysterious characters. I mean, he goes on both sides, light and dark, and I want to see someone who's so powerful that can control both of those sides at the same time.
Oh, great pick. I would watch that over and over again. Jake.
Boy, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, but I'm going to go off of Daniel's thing and say that I would definitely take an Old Republic era type of show. I think there's so much there that we can work with without stepping all over the canon we threw out. Can I get another reference in there for that? Yeah, I think that Darth Revan would be pretty awesome. I've read a lot of the books about him, and I think that would make for a really sweet show that kind of goes along with The Mandalorian in terms of keeping it raw and real and kind of rough and ready sort of thing.
And it's a very focused character piece because he is split on both sides and can control both sides as well.
Very true.
I love this. I would watch it for sure, but I think my preference when it comes to the Old Republic, I want movies. I want trilogies because I want them to spend the proper amount of time to really bring that to life. They're doing a great job with The Mandalorian with special effects, but I feel like some of it is a bit rushed, and I'm glad they rushed it because we are going to be going through the doldrums at this point of no movies for a couple years. So I'm glad that we have Disney Plus creating these series, but I think that there's obviously a difference between television and the quality you get from a movie. So I hope that they actually put the Old Republic into the movies. And I would watch the shows. I would definitely watch the show. But I think if I have my druthers, if I'm looking for a show, I've gone back and forth, but I think I would actually like Plagueis, Darth Plagueis. And then the reason I say that is because I'm reading, I'm using audiobooks to listen to Plagueis, which as far as the expanding universe has gone, I've read some novels, not a ton, not like Jake, who's very well read, but I have loved Plagueis. I'm about 22 chapters in right now, and it's, if you don't know who that is, Darth Plagueis is mentioned in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and that is when Emperor Palpatine is trying to convince Anakin that he can help him save Padme, his love interest, obviously. He's trying to get him to say that you can learn how to save someone and bring someone back to life, and you won't learn it from the light side. You'll only learn it from the Sith, and he mentions Darth Plagueis, because Darth Plagueis was actually Sidious, who is Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious' master, and that's who it was before when he was the apprentice. So Plagueis is really interesting, and I'm really getting into it. There's so much intrigue and depth. I think it plays well politically. I think it plays well action-wise, but I think it'd be great for an expanded series. I think that's what I'd like to see.
That could work.
I would love to see a new animated series, too, as an honorable mention.
Oh, for sure.
Like, give me Dave Filoni doing a Adventures of Master Jedi Luke Skywalker and Padawan Ben Solo, and just carbon copy it from the Clone Wars, because it worked.
You know, I didn't put this in the show notes, but apparently Marvel is exploring Luke with Ben and Lor San Tekka. Who knows what Lor San Tekka is really about? I have no idea. I mean, he's the guy at the beginning with Max von Sydow at the very beginning of Episode 7 saying this will begin to correct everything that's been wrong. He's the guy that gives the location of Luke Skywalker to Poe Dameron. And then he's instantly killed by Kylo Ren. He seems like he's supposed to be important, but we don't know anything about him, and they've not explained anything.
Let's explain what went wrong just within that own sentence, you know?
Uh-huh.
I'm on board. I think it's a great call, Daniel.
That's a good idea.
since we're talking about Disney Plus Star Wars shows in 2020, we know about Kenobi, we know about Cassian Andor as far as the series is concerned, but Disney is taking a cue from Marvel and the source content that they provide. And believe me, we're going to talk about source content in a little bit. And they're taking Dr. Aphra. Now, if you're not familiar with who Dr. Aphra is, you should, because this comes from the Marvel universe of Star Wars. And so Dr. Aphra is basically like this criminal archaeologist who helps Vader, and she works for Vader during like kind of the original trilogy time frame of the first 3 movies that we all fell in love with as kids. She's kind of working for him to help him find artifacts and so that he can learn things. And from that series, she has some pretty interesting plays that she makes. And Disney is looking at doing that because it's a joint venture between Marvel and Lucasfilm. So that's something to look forward to. We don't know for sure this is actually what's happening, but Making Star Wars Jason Ward, who's known for huge scoops, says it's 100% happening. Production will start in 2020. Probably we'll get the second season of The Mandalorian first, and then we'll start to see something coming. Possibly Dr. Aphra could be the second, or Kenobi. I'm not sure which will come first. And she originated her character in 2015 from the Darth Vader miniseries, and then she's also acknowledged to be LGBTQ. Her adventures, again, fit in the OT era, which means that we could see her cross over into the Mandalorian time frame, because we don't know that she actually met an end of any sort during that time frame. So maybe she crosses over into the Mandalorian. And Daniel, you've read some of the Dr. Aphra comics.
Yeah, I have, and I actually love this idea just for the pure fact that when Disney bought Lucasfilm and Star Wars, one of the first things I said is that Darth Vader is so iconic, and even though he's gone, they need to find a way to use him, and they did that with a little snippet in Rogue One, which was probably some of the best parts of the movie, and now even if he just shows up in little snippets in this miniseries, he's able to still maintain relevance, and Disney can still make a crap load of money off of merchandise.
Amen. Amen to that.
Nate, I gotta call you out for a second here.
Okay.
So, Jason Ward Making Star Wars. I thought we weren't looking at him because I was going to send you this article. And you said, don't send me this stuff because he's too good at spoiling things and I don't want to be spoiled, so I didn't send it, you punk.
Well, I'll tell you, it depends on what it is. It really depends on what it is with them. And here's why. I don't want any major plot points spoiled for me. So if I know it's a subject of, will we see Anakin Skywalker and those sorts of things, I'm not going to read it. But if it's talking about, hey, there's a new show that's coming up in production, I want to know what that is.
Oh, all right. Well, you better write down some rules for me so I understand how this is supposed to work.
I'll do my best, man, but pretty much just got to move around on the fly. That's how I work. So
Gotcha.
I also want to transition to another topic here because there's been a lot of stuff that we have on the plate here, and frankly, it's too much to fit into an hour. I'm going to try to make sure we do that. So we know now what the next series is going to be. Kathleen Kennedy, I've got to get to this topic. It's a little older. It's a few weeks old at this point, but she recently said that there's a lack of source content and it makes things challenging. And I hear Daniel just chomping at the bit right now. We're going to let him tee off on this, but let me give you the quote basically. So she was talking about how Chris Terrio, the writer, co-screenwriter of Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and J.J. Abrams, she was talking about some things that she took issue with as far as how difficult it is to expand the stories that George Lucas started. And so let me give you this quote here. One of the things we talk about all the time is the fact that it was very important to George that these stories really meant something, that they have something to say, and that they have a real emotional core. So we spend a lot of time talking about that and trying to find the spine of a story that feels satisfying. When you're dealing, as I said, with something where you don't necessarily have any source material, then you're looking for a filmmaker who has a strong point of view, who can find themselves in the characters and in the story. Daniel, I feel like you have something to say about the source material comment.
First of all, that whole quote is some garbage corporate speak right there. Like through and through, because you took a tremendous amount of novels and comics and video games and made them all non-canon, and there's your source material right there. Yep. You can give me a Kyle Katarn anything, and people will lose their minds. You know, you want to throw in a Dash Rendar? Sure, let's do that. You have these characters that people know and love from years and years, adapt them into the current canon, and there's your source material. Marvel does it with all their comics. Why can't you do it with all this stuff that you non-canonized?
Filoni's pretty good at it. I mean, we got Thrawn. Thrawn has been one of my all-time favorite baddies from the series, and they found a way to work him in. I hope they don't lose sight of being able to use him, and frankly, Thrawn doesn't have to be relegated just to the animated Star Wars universe. He can fit into the movies.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think they need to get Filoni involved because Filoni knows how to weave the thread to make it work for both where things have been canon, non-canon, to work in the EU in a way that I don't even care that they reworked his backstory. There's a lot of elements that we liked about Thrawn that they stayed true to.
even the creator, Timothy Zhang, said he loved what they did with him, and like it gave him a tear to his eye because he actually saw him in the animated series and off of just written pages in a book. If he's reacting that way, then go back and start pulling all of these old characters that people love and just readapt them. It's not that difficult. Like, Kathy, love ya, but stop saying this nonsense.
Okay, so you're referencing Timothy Zahn that wrote Heir of the Empire, where Thrawn first appears. Okay, yeah. So totally great series of books. If any of you guys haven't read it, that's definitely a place to start with the EU.
The place to start.
I agree, for sure. And Thrawn is just such an iconic bad guy, kind of like Vader in the sense that he's just bigger than life, you know? They could definitely, there's so much. And Daniel, like you said about Kathleen Kennedy's quote, it drives me crazy because they were swimming, drowning in source material, and they threw it out 90% of it.
Yeah, totally.
That's just, I'm sorry. And I harp on it a lot with Nate. He's probably getting tired of hearing it, but
no.
And that's fine that you had to streamline everything, but just don't disregard it. That is your source material that you can go and source things and make them new again out of. That's like any type of legacy franchise. I mean, any of these franchises that are coming back from the 80s, that's what they're doing. You know, they're taking certain things and they're readapting them to modern times to fit the current story and continue.
Well, and it's like I keep telling Nate, you know, don't expect all these fans who become writers and directors and producers to be able to forget all that stuff, because you know they've read it too, and it influences and directs what they do and what they write, even if they can't explicitly acknowledge it or pull from it. So why not walk that back? Why not use some of it? It may not necessarily have to all be canon, but there are so many great ideas and so many iconic storylines in, looking at my bookshelf here, you know, New Jedi Order and Legacy of the Force alone, just to pick two that you could use just little bits and pieces of and then expand them however you like. There's such great ideas that,
I tell you what,
throw them away?
Rian Johnson wasn't afraid of looking at the EU for inspiration. I mean, he called people out when they were saying, like, where did you find this force power from? Yeah. Look at the books on my shelves here. I drew it from the expanded universe, even because...
He opened it up to the page of the book and was showing it.
Yeah, respect, man, I'll tell you.
I may not have been a fan of everything Rian Johnson did, which I've made plainly clear on this show, but at the same time, he was drawing from the EU on that, and that was something I really liked about that movie, so I thought it was great.
He's got nerd cred.
And as they've said out in the old mining days when gold strikes would happen, there's gold in them thar hills. There's plenty of material, source content. I can respect where Kathy's coming from. I like Kathy as well. But at the same time, I know that she's trying to toe the line to make sure that she's not throwing anyone under the bus. But there is plenty of source content available to draw from. There is great stuff in the books, in the comics, from the video games. I mean, the best video game ever was Knights of the Old Republic. Hands down my favorite of all the Star Wars games. And why? Because the story was good.
It was. It wasn't about graphics or fancy effects or anything in those days.
The story was great.
And that brings us full circle to Darth Revan again.
Yes, it does.
And we want it. I mean, if they know that there's enough support out there for Darth Revan to make a special series figure for the toys, obviously there's enough draw there commercially. We want that stuff.
Well, and they're coming out with the light side version next year. It's like a GameStop exclusive. So, I mean...
The Jedi Revan.
They're still putting it out. And, I mean, come on.
Because we'll buy it.
Yeah.
The continuing success of Star Wars The Old Republic game, what features so much of that timeline and all that stuff so prominently. Obviously, people are still interested. Let's use it, you know, keep carrying on.
Amen. There it is. Moving on to the next topic now, guys. I'm keeping us on the time frame here so we can get to all these subjects because there's one I think is going to take up a lot of our time. Moving to Baby Yoda toys. Last week in the last episode we talked about you're not going to get anything until April or May. And then sure enough, the day our podcast comes out, I find out, well, wait a second. They're starting to churn up production on some things. And Daniel actually has a lot of knowledge in the toy industry itself. It's something he follows very closely. Daniel, what's the latest word on Baby Yoda stuff? Because we're all fiending for Baby Yoda supplies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you are on Reddit, you can see people that are like 3D printing these really terrible versions now and selling them on Etsy, like crazy amount of money. But you know what? First, let me start by saying I appreciate keeping it silent, and I appreciate Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni having the balls to tell Disney no on the merch.
Absolutely.
Because the surprise was just priceless.
And Disney could have overpowered him. So great job by Disney.
Yeah, totally. But, you know, as you know, last week they announced Funko and Mattel announced a plushie, and then 2 different Funko Pops. One's like 10-inch size, which I guess is supposed to be like close to life size, I would assume. And then the standard, smaller Funko Pop figure. But then Hasbro just dropped their bomb a couple days ago, and they're coming out with just a plethora of anything from a 6-inch figure to an actual Black Series 1.12-inch scale Yoda that is to scale of the 6-inch Black Series figures. And
Nice.
it's going to be in this tiny little packaging for $10.
Yeah.
And you're probably gonna it's gonna be so hard to find.
Buying it. Pre-order now.
Definitely. And then Hasbro's also coming out with an electronic version, which I don't know too much about, but I'm assuming there's lots of different noises and sounds that it makes from the show.
No words, of course, because, he doesn't talk and all, but
Right.
that's not important.
I actually think he's going to say his first word in the season finale.
I think you're right.
I just want to throw that out there.
So there you go. Baby Yoda stuff coming out sooner than we expected, so you can expect that in the coming months. We will have what we need. We can mainline Baby Yoda into our system right away. We'll also move on to the official Star Wars fan club. This is a really great Facebook group. They've gotten a lot of recognition, family friendly, so you don't have to worry about too much there. Obviously, when it comes to can your kids look at it, that sort of thing. They have fun conversations, and there's actually specifically one, and I gave them a little love at the beginning of the show, but I want to go and get into a specific conversation that's been kind of lighting up in their group, and that is, there's a deal here. Consider Ahsoka Tano or Rey. Which one do you think is more powerful? Which one stands out? Which is the better Jedi? Even though obviously we know that Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order, but still it's a pretty good conversation. Who's the better female Jedi that we like better? The preferences as they go. Let's look at some of the things that they're making the argument for. Ahsoka Tano fought Ventress, Asajj Ventress, in the Clone Wars campaigns, in the cartoon series. If you haven't watched it, again, I can't recommend it highly enough. You've got to watch it. She fought General Grievous, destroyed an entire droid factory, fought Tarkin in trial, fought Aura Singh, one of the greatest bounty hunters out there, saved Padme. She saved Anakin. She died at one point, took a droid gunship shot like a boss, fought Anakin, fought Maul, survived Order 66, killed an Inquisitor without even a lightsaber, fought 3 more Inquisitors, fought Darth Vader and got a hit on him, and fought the Senate. Rey, well, as they put it in the chat group here, she fought an emo knockoff Sith, lifted some rocks. Granted, Rey's done a lot more than that, but this person who posted this clearly has a lot of love for Ahsoka Tano.
That's my girl.
Thoughts?
Ahsoka's my girl. I love Ahsoka. She's the most well-developed female Star Wars character yet. There's no other. And I mean, that's what you get when you have, how many, 6 seasons and a new one coming?
7th on the way.
So, I mean, power-wise, she was trained through the Jedi Order, so Ahsoka has more skills. Rey might be overall more powerful in the Force, but we won't be able to possibly see that in any type of live-action setting. Maybe if they give her an animated series, but but Ahsoka's my girl. I vote Ahsoka all the way.
Ahsoka the Grey. We don't even know what she's possible of doing. I mean, we just got a hint of that at the end of Rebels, which, Dave Filoni, don't tease us. Give us more Ahsoka. Jake.
I'm all about Ahsoka, and if you haven't read her book, strangely enough titled Ahsoka, it was really good. Pretty much sure that's out of the EU end of things, not the canon now, but great story of her going on to continue on the work of a Jedi in the sense of, doing the whole A-team thing and saving villages that need help saving from bad guys. And great story. Found a female reader that was good to read it. It really worked well. I'm a big fan of Ahsoka, always have been.
I am too, and I came around to the Clone Wars very late in the game. It wasn't until they were on Netflix I started watching them. So there's a lot of casual Star Wars fans out there that like the movies, like the live action, but don't want to touch the animated stuff or the books. This is something you want to do. Now, get over the fact that you're watching a cartoon. The movie, I'll be honest with you, that launched the whole series, it was hot garbage. I didn't like it that much. And after I watched the movie, I had nothing to do with the series. But then when it came out on Netflix, I started watching. If you don't know already, Ahsoka Tano is the Padawan to Anakin Skywalker in the campaign of the Clone Wars. Between Episode 2 and Episode 3, that's where Ahsoka Tano's character came in. There was a lot of time between those movies because they're pretty long expanse, close to 10 years, I think, it was between those movies. So you can see the role that she played in helping to shape who Anakin Skywalker is.
Yep.
But in the beginning, she kept calling him cutesy names like Sky Guy, stuff like that. Thankfully, they got rid of the cutesy factor and really, as you said, Daniel, gave her a full development. Throughout the episodes, it got so much better. She was fully realized, and that's why she was demanded by fans for showing up in Rebels, because we wanted more Ahsoka Tano. We want Ahsoka Tano lives, all that stuff. She survived Order 66. If I was going to make a series, I would certainly think about Ahsoka Tano in the series. If you don't want to go and chance it, take the chance on a movie or a trilogy, get into a live-action series. I would love to see that. hands down one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters, and it started from a cartoon.
Yep.
Boba Fett started from a cartoon. Look at how popular he became.
That's true. Well, to be fair to Ahsoka, I would say that with the cute names and calling Skywalker Sky Guy and stuff like that, I mean, she did start out as a very innocent 15-year-old girl coming out into the world of the war as Anakin's Padawan that he didn't even want or ask for.
Okay, that makes sense.
Foisted on him by Yoda. So, I mean, I can see, and the book I just finished, crap, I can't remember the name of it for whatever reason.
We're older, we forget things.
Yeah, you're older than me, buddy, by a couple months.
I know.
Anyway, the book I just
Let me
finished...
go get my Geritol. I'll be right back.
There you go. Talked about Ahsoka and a lot of her innocence because she actually, in this story, ran across a sect of Force-using people. They aren't really part of the Jedi Order who allow attachments during the Clone Wars. You know, they get engaged, they get married, they have kids, and that was a big shock to her. And I think that they really drove it home, and it was funny because Rex was in this story too. And a lot of what he was saying was like, I don't know, normally I try to teach her when Master Skywalker's not around, but I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole kind of thing. You know, I'm not explaining this. Anakin can do that sort of thing. So it just really hammered home something that made me think about it more than I had realized before, is just how innocent she truly was when she showed up that day on, gosh, what planet did they start her out on? I can't even remember. But, you know, to be Anakin's Padawan that he wasn't even expecting.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to have the birds and the bees with you. Go talk to Anakin.
Yes, talk to Anakin.
This could get uncomfortable. All right. So clearly we're all Ahsoka Tano fans. We want more Ahsoka content. Give it to us. I want a live action series or her own animated show. I'm fine with that. Ashley Eckstein has done a great job of portraying her throughout the years. Let her keep doing it in the animated capacity. I'm fine with that. Let's get to the main event. We all know what's going down this week. We've been jonesing for this ever since we saw episode 8, and I'd like to forget it, but it happened. It's part of the deal. I'll talk about Star Wars that exists and not what I wish it was, but let's go and get into what Episode 9 can do and if it can sway the fandom back together. Because so far, The Mandalorian has done an excellent job of keeping the fandom together when it was fairly, dicey for a while. There was a lot of factions involved, very strong feelings involved. This is JJ's chance to bring us all back together, to start the journey he began. Daniel, yes.
Can I climb through the camera and strangle you now?
Daniel, if you want to share that with everybody, feel free and let the jealousy flow.
I get to see it at my press screener on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So
you suck.
I will be sitting there not being able to talk to anyone about it because you can't talk about it until it actually hits theaters Thursday night.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to cry? Are tears going to stream down your face of this? Do you think that's a possibility?
I will say maybe, because even that quote that C-3PO has in the trailers.
Yes.
I was just like, oh man, nope, it's going to happen.
I get misty-eyed at movies. I'm very emotional when it comes to that stuff, and this is like such a huge part of my childhood. I expect, from what I've seen, and frankly, you nailed it, the 3PO moment when he said he was taking a last look at his friends in that trailer we got. I was like, oh man, I'm misty-eyed already. It's happening. I'm probably going to cry at this movie.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
That could happen.
So,
hey man,
again,
when Tony Stark died, I was the only person in the theater that was going like,
I totally was too.
It was like so silent, and like that's the only thing that like my fiance heard, and she was sitting right next to me, and she's just like, "You're such a wimp."
Dude, I cried 4 times in that movie. I not full on just blubbering, but point almost.
Yeah.
And it
That
was
kind of
the funeral.
reminds
It
me
got
of being the only one laughing during Titanic at the end when people are going down like Plinko chips down the side of the ship. And I'm laughing my head off, and my girlfriend's at the time is looking over at me like, I am going to freaking kill you, and then I'm going to leave.
But yeah,
Jake has a heart of stone.
I don't, actually. I cry. I'm not going to lie. I cried at the end of Rogue One. I cry at movies all the time. I'm a wuss. Go watch Walk to Remember and tell me you don't cry.
Hey.
Seriously? Never going to happen.
if you don't cry during a movie, then you're not alive.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to have some feelings. And A Walk to Remember, I know since like the year 2000, I think Jake has been telling me to watch A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore. It's a Nicholas Sparks movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I still haven't done it. I'm sorry. It's not happening.
Well, if you want to ruin your day, that's the one to do right there.
Oh, man. I can't wait for this. It is the main event. It's what we've all been waiting for. The end of the Skywalker saga is happening this week. I'm still just shocked with this. Now, I actually sent you guys a clip that they released from the official Star Wars account on Facebook. Have you guys watched this clip yet?
Yes.
let me just go and break it down for you guys. Go to the Star Wars Facebook page, because I didn't find it on their YouTube page. It's on the Star Wars Facebook page, and watch the clip. It's about, I think, a minute 15, minute 30, and it is something really special because it gives us a really good look at what's happening with Kylo Ren, and there's a huge reveal in this. And so I'm going to play this clip for you guys. So guys, just get ready to get silent for a second, and let's play this out and let people hear what's happening.
At last. My boy. I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
Wow. When you get to that part with the Emperor, we hear Palpatine talking about every voice inside your head has been me the whole time. I got goosebumps. And that has helped us with a major problem I've had since the beginning. Because he says, tell me again, grandfather. He's saying that he's been having these conversations with his grandfather when he looks at the Darth Vader mask that's all melty from Endor. That is a pretty big reveal, I think. Jake,
Did we talk about this last week or the week before, you and I?
I think it was the week before.
And I said I thought that it could very well be, and you and I think we both agreed that it could very well be that Palpatine was doing it the whole time.
Manipulating the whole time.
Yep.
And Daniel, when you saw this, what was going through your mind?
Well, the whole beginning part of that little clip or teaser or whatever, it's very dark. It's a very dark side. And the whole time I'm thinking, I want more of this in this movie.
Yeah.
I want to explore more of this. I mean, it looks like he's going to a Sith temple. You can see giant statues behind him when he's coming down on the lift, and I hope that they are able to fully explore this and not just show it as background and throwaway after 5 minutes when he's in there. You know, I want to learn more about that. It's intrigued me, and that's what I want out of that trailer. So it's succeeded.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we're seeing that Kylo Ren has been called to by Emperor Palpatine. I feel like that's the overarching thing that's going on. He's been called to him because you see that Kylo Ren's on a mission to get to this planet, wherever he is, and it looks like, you know, a Sith temple, because you see as he's descending down into the temple, when he's hearing Palpatine talking to him, you're looking out and you're seeing these huge hooded figure statues. It's got to be like a Sith temple of some sort that he's descending down into. And when you see this story that's been building over 9 movies, that it's Palpatine has been the bad guy since the very beginning, which they did a great job of. You know, people can gripe about the prequels as much as they want, but one thing that George Lucas did was a very fine job of laying out who the villain has always been in these stories.
Yep, totally.
It has always been Palpatine. Some people think, oh, well, they ran out of ideas. They're just trying to bring back everything that George Lucas did in the sequels here by mimicking the original Star Wars movie, A New Hope, with Episode 7. But this, I think, goes a different direction, and it brings back who's always been manipulating things from the very beginning. And Palpatine is about the strongest Force user we've seen entirely of all the Force users in the movies.
Sure.
So I'm excited for that. Yeah. If there's one big thing that you think you're hoping for this movie has to have in it, and think about that for a second, what does this movie have to have in it to make it a success? What's got to happen to make it seem like, okay, this is a worthwhile ending for us? And I'll go and start with you, Daniel.
I don't know if it's, it's something that I want. I don't know if it's a make or break for me, but I really want as you've coined it, the Bendemption to occur. And I really want that to happen when he sees a Force ghost of Anakin, and it's not Vader, and it's Anakin, and that gives him all the feels, and that changes and flips him right there. That's what I would love to see.
That is exactly how I feel. I want Anakin back. I want him to be the Force ghost that Ben sees. If there's going to be Bendemption, I want it to be because of that. That's what I need. Jake?
Raise parents. 2 words. It's that simple. To me, I think that they've built it up so much and made such a huge, like, purposeful mystery out of it. If they just leave it hanging and there's no more to it than, you know, filthy junk traders who traded her for drink money, I just don't believe that. I have a hard time believing that at all. I think that's just either Kylo being an ass or trying to trick her and whatever. Or maybe he really thinks that that's what happened because that's what his intel tells him, but that isn't what happened. But there's more to it, and we better find out what it is.
I think that he does think that's the case in episode 8, that he's telling her the truth because it's what he saw in her mind. He mentions he saw it in her mind. She's always known that's what it was. That's what she thinks. But I do think he finds out who her parents really are and tells her, because there's another clip that just came out, and I found it on YouTube. It's about a 15-second clip. He tells her, I know who your parents really are.
Yeah.
I think he actually finds out who they are, and he's the one who tells her.
Yes, it's Palpatine and her anonymous mom that we'll find out about later.
I don't think it's Zori Bliss. It's a popular thing going on. I don't think it's Zori Bliss.
No, it's something else. It'll be something out of left field.
Daniel, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this movie. I'm not going to get to see it as early as you, and you've done a great job over the years of not spoiling anything for me, but you've helped me take the right tone before I go to see this movie, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on it.
I can't wait to tell you that Jar Jar Binks is behind it all.
My favorite internet theory of all time, it was Jar Jar.
Jar Jar is a secret Sith Lord that's been manipulating everything from on high.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you've got to look this theory up on the internet. It's a popular one that's been lasting for a few years now, that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord. Google Jar Jar Binks, Sith Lord. You're going to find a very comical tale. And actually, I wouldn't have minded if it were true. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, you guys got to quit making me laugh. It hurts.
I'll do my best. Daniel, at this point, I want to thank you again for helping us, sponsoring our show, and I want to get you a chance to talk about your website, dailysuperhero.com. I have been a fan of the site since you launched it, and Daniel, a little history on us. We actually worked together on a football website back in the day that was another passion of ours, and then you found out, I'm going to follow this other passion I've got all the way through and see it to the end. It's been really fun to see the journey.
Well, luckily, I did that transition at the perfect time, because the football website fell apart pretty quick and sudden there, but
it still hurts my heart.
We won't talk about that.
I was so happy when Sports Authority failed. It's the whole reason our website went down, is because of a little company called Sports Authority that now doesn't exist. Yep. So I can say whatever I want about it.
I didn't get to poop on their front doorstep, so I'm kind of angry about that.
That is a bummer, man.
Oh, man, I would have done that in a heartbeat. All right, so tell us about the website.
The website, I mean, I try to not get into too much theory and opinion. I try to keep it pretty basic and simple. If you're looking for something that's not spoilerific, I will warn every once in a while if I do, especially in reviews. But, I try to keep it pretty clean cut. A new trailer comes out, I post a trailer. New TV spot comes out, I post the TV spot. It is very, very Marvel and superhero focused, more so than Star Wars. But, it's my website, so I like to talk about Star Wars every once in a while and throw in some Indiana Jones, and hopefully they can bring that franchise back. And then, like you said,
they're doing it
earlier, Ghostbusters is on the comeback now, and of course I want to talk about that because that trailer looked fantastic.
It did. If people want to follow you online in social media, where are they going, bud?
On Twitter, it's just @DailySuperhero, one word. And then on Facebook, just look up The Daily Superhero, and you'll find us right there.
All right, perfect. Again, dailysuperhero.com. Thank you so much, Daniel, for taking the time.
Thank you.
Hope to bring you back as often as you care to join us. We certainly appreciate you being a part of the conversation today. And Jake, man, we've got to get in to see this movie. We don't get the press credentials. And Daniel, by the way, gets to go to all the cool stuff. San Diego Comic-Con, all the different shows, D23. He is there. He's an insider for all sorts of great stuff. Star Wars news related, Marvel, DC, all these things. He's a great guy to follow for that because he's got the inside track to a lot of great stuff.
Well, at least we know the right people.
I know more things than I'm allowed to post about, so I do keep lots and lots of secrets.
Nice.
You know what?
He's a vault.
Some things are best left kept as a surprise for when you see it. When you see it in your theater seat or when you see it on the TV, like, I'm all about keeping the surprise intact, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone.
You're a great guy. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you for thinking of not ruining things for us. And hey, everybody, please make sure you join us again next week with new episodes of The Force Geeks, a Star Wars podcast dropping every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, just about any place you get your podcast from, we're going to be there. Another thank you to our sponsor, DailySuperhero.com, and founder Daniel Wolf for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you here. We also appreciate any kind of reviews that you, the listener, might want to provide us there. So 5-star reviews, always welcomed. And feel free to hit us up with your emails at theforcegeeks@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, so follow us at theforcegeeks and on Facebook. And Daniel's waving around again, Seeing It Tuesday. I'm so jealous.
We're going to have to take away his pens before we broadcast next time.
The first and the last time I'll be here.
Remember, if you don't follow the Force Geeks, you're looking for your Star